Have you ever noticed that, like, trying harder is usually the exact reason you fail?
Oh, absolutely. It's so frustrating.
Right. I mean, think back to when you were first trying to learn something totally new, like riding a bike.
Hmm.
You're wobbling, you're gripping the handlebars way too tight, putting in absolute maximum effort, and it feels physically impossible.
Because every single input feels wrong. Your brain and your body are basically just stuck in this state of total instability, totally fighting against gravity.
Yeah, exactly. But then there is that exact magical fraction of a second where it suddenly just clicks.
Yes.
The wobble vanishes,
Yeah.
and what felt totally impossible a millisecond ago is just, well, completely effortless. You're no longer fighting the bike, you're just riding.
And that click is honestly one of the most satisfying feelings in the world. But
Yeah.
usually we just shrug and, chalk it up to muscle memory finally kicking in.
Or like our brains magically figuring it out behind the scenes.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's unpack this because it feels like magic when you finally balance on that bike. But today we're going to prove it's actually just math and alignment. And the sources we are diving into today to prove this to you are, frankly, one of the most bizarre pairings we have ever looked at.
Bizarre is definitely putting it mildly. We have two wildly different pieces of source material on the table for this deep dive.
Yeah, so on one hand, we have this highly technical cross-disciplinary physics paper. It's titled Relational Alignment and Critical Thresholds, and I mean, it is dense.
Oh, very dense.
It is packed with logistics curves, order parameters, complex systems analysis, all of that.
And then sitting right next to it, we have a three-part presentation script. But the catch is it is explicitly designed for sixth graders.
Which is just wild to me.
It's known as the Celominisignum, or Similarity Theory presentation. And it is literally titled, Why Things Suddenly Start Working.
It is such an incredible contrast. I mean, the mission for us today is to bridge this massive gap. We are going to take this high-level academic physics paper and combine it with this presentation for 11-year-olds to uncover the actual scientific rules behind why things suddenly start working for you.
And the foundational concept uniting both of these sources is, well, it's a very specific type of alignment.
Right, to understand this magical click moment, we need to look at how these two entirely different worlds describe the exact same phenomenon. The kids' script calls it the change point, and the physics paper calls it a critical threshold.
And part one of that sixth grade script breaks the concept down beautifully before we even, touch the physics. It simply states alignment equals things lined up.
Get it simple, right?
Exactly. And it uses these incredibly vivid visual examples. So imagine a screen full of messy arrows all pointing in random chaotic directions.
Total disorder, just visual noise.
Right. But then they slowly turn, and the moment they line up, they become these clean, parallel arrows. Or think of a crowd of people in an auditorium clapping completely out of sync.
Oh, that is the worst sound.
It really is just a wall of random noise
Yeah.
until they suddenly find the rhythm and clap perfectly together. The script is teaching the kids that when things line up, they work better. And that special singular moment where it clicks, that is the change point.
And then you jump over to the physics paper, and it defines this exact same concept, but it uses the term relational alignment.
Yes.
It defines this as the degree to which system variables, so things like an angle, a phase, or an orientation, how they support coherent interaction.
Right.
It is essentially measuring how efficiently energy, matter, or information is transferred within a system.
And to actually measure that efficiency, the paper introduces a metric called the IAC, or Informational Alignment Coefficient.
Okay? IAC.
Right. The IAC is a normalized measure of instantaneous alignment relative to a threshold. So a high IAC means you have strong alignment. A low IAC means you have severe misalignment.
Got it.
And that critical threshold they mention, that is the specific value where the system undergoes a non-linear transition.
Wait, so is IAC basically just a fancy scientific way of saying, are we pointed in the right direction right now, like in this exact single millisecond?
That is the perfect way to summarize it. It's an instantaneous snapshot of a system's state.
It makes me think of trying to start a fire with a magnifying glass.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, like you are out in the sun, turning the glass, tilting it, and absolutely nothing happens. You are just projecting a fuzzy, harmless circle of light on a leaf.
Right, just warming up the leaf a little bit.
Exactly. But then you hit that exact right angle, that precise distance from the leaf, so your IAC hits the maximum, and the sunbeam suddenly focuses into a tiny dot and catches fire. That exact moment is the change point.
What's fascinating here is how the paper mathematically proves this transition using logistic formulas. And look, we don't need to get bogged down in the alphabet soup of the math.
Please, let's not.
But if you picture a graph in your head, the paper plots a logistic curve. For a long time, the line on the graph is basically flat. And that flat line represents variability. It is the dispersion, the instability, the reduced coordination.
The wobbling bike.
Yeah.
The fuzzy circle of light.
Yes. And as you adjust your variable, like the angle of your magnifying glass, you are just moving along that flat line. But the moment you cross the transition midpoint, the threshold itself, the curve spikes dramatically straight up.
Wow.
You instantly cross a sharp boundary into coherence, which is stable, ordered behavior. The fire starts.
And this highlights something the paper brings up that I found mind-blowing. The transition is non-linear. Being 99% aligned doesn't give you 99% of a fire.
No, it doesn't.
It gives you basically zero fire. But hitting 100% alignment yields a 10,000% result. It is literally a cliff edge.
That sharp line between chaos and order is dictated entirely by a single variable's alignment in that specific millisecond.
Okay, so getting that alignment right for one single second, like hitting that high IAC is great. You found the exact spot where the magnifying glass works.
Right.
But as part 2 of the kids' script points out, you have to keep it working. Finding the perfect balance point on a bike for a microsecond doesn't mean you actually know how to ride a bike to the grocery store.
Getting to the threshold is only half the battle. Maintaining it is where the real work of any system happens. This moves us from looking at a single snapshot in time to looking at a sustained process.
And the physics paper has a completely separate metric for this sustained process, right? The IOC, or Informational Order Coefficiency.
Exactly. If the IAC is the state, the snapshot we just talked about, the IOC is the outcome. The paper defines IOC mathematically as the integral of IAC over a time frame.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because introducing an integral equation basically means consistency matters. I mean, in calculus, an integral is just the accumulation of all those instantaneous moments added up over time.
The formula simply integrates the snapshot alignments from the beginning of your observation to the end. You are tallying up all the moments of alignment to see what you actually built.
It is like hitting one perfect note on a guitar. That is your IAC. You found the right fret, you plucked the string, and it resonated beautifully for one single second.
Right, a perfect snapshot.
But playing a whole song without messing up, maintaining that precision across 3 minutes, that is your IOC. Or actually even simpler, think of water dripping into a bucket.
Oh, I like that.
The IAC is the exact angle you turn the faucet to let a single perfect drop fall. The IOC is the slow, sustained accumulation of water filling up the bucket over time.
I love that bucket metaphor because it perfectly illustrates the combinations of these two metrics. If you have a high IAC, so the faucet's perfectly aligned and a sustained duration, you get a high IOC.
The bucket fills up.
Exactly. That represents efficient order formation and persistence.
But what if you have a high IAC, but only for a short duration?
Then you get a low IOC. The order fails to accumulate. You hit the perfect guitar note, but then you immediately drop your pick and fumble the next chord.
Right.
You get one drop of water in the bucket, and then you twist the faucet shut. The overall structure just doesn't emerge.
This maps so perfectly to the core method taught in part 2 of the 6th grade script. I mean, the presentation gives the kids a simple 3-step process for problem solving. Step 1, find what is not lined up. Be a detective. Step 2, make small changes, little adjustments. Step 3, reach the change point where it clicks.
And the script uses really tangible examples for this process that completely mirror the physics. Think about throwing a baseball.
Okay.
Your throw feels off, so you adjust your grip or your stance. You are making small changes to your relational variables until suddenly the throw is perfect. Or working on a team, it's messy at first. Everyone is talking over each other, but you make small adjustments in how you communicate until you reach that change point and you're working perfectly together.
So you are actively managing your IAC to build up your IOC.
Precisely. And the paper actually deliberately uses a minimal integral for the IOC to allow for this kind of broad application.
What do you mean by minimal integral?
By keeping the core equations simple, it allows engineers or physicists to add domain-specific refinements later. Like they might weight the equation by energy flux if they are studying thermodynamics, or add decay terms if they are studying radioactive material.
Oh, I see.
But the foundational state process layering remains. It creates a testable bridge between the microdynamics, like the tiny adjustments of a baseball grip, and the emergent macro-organization like the team finally functioning as a unit.
Okay, so applying this to kids learning teamwork or adjusting a baseball pitch makes intuitive sense for human behavior.
Yeah.
But earlier you mentioned this applies to completely unrelated physical universes.
Yes, it does.
How does an equation for throwing a ball or clapping your hands map onto, say, a swinging pendulum?
Well, the authors actually analyze 4 physically distinct scientific systems to test this framework, and they break down exactly how the mechanisms work in each one.
Walk us through those because this is where the scope of this paper gets massive.
So the first system is Kuramoto oscillator synchronization.
Chromoto what?
I know, it sounds intense, but it just looks at how coupled oscillators eventually sync up. So if you, the listener, have ever been sitting at a red light and noticed the turn signals of the 2 cars in front of you blinking randomly but then slowly falling into perfect sync, you've seen this.
Oh yeah, I love when that happens.
Right. Or think of pendulum clocks mounted on the same wall. The relational variable here is coupling strength. The kinetic energy of one pendulum ticking sends microscopic vibrations through the wood of the wall, nudging the clock next to it.
No way.
Yes. Eventually, those tiny nudges force the pendulums to swing in exact unison.
That is wild. Okay, what is the second system?
Optical transmission. Specifically, unpolarized light crossing a glass-air interface. When light travels through glass and hits the edge where the air begins, it either bends and passes through, or it reflects back inside like a mirror. The relational variable governing that is the angle of incidence. The paper notes the specific threshold for total internal reflection is an angle of incidence below 41.81 degrees. If you hit that exact angle, the light bounces perfectly.
Wow. And the third system?
Signal interference. This is a 2-wave model looking at constructive interference. Think of how noise-canceling headphones work, or conversely, how you amplify a radio signal.
Right.
The governing variable here is the phase difference between the signals. If the peaks of the sound waves line up, they double in size. If they are misaligned, they cancel each other out in silence.
Okay, so we have syncing clocks, bending light, and radio waves. What is the last one?
Vector mechanical force. Imagine trying to push a heavy refrigerator across a linoleum floor. The relational variable is the misalignment angle of your force relative to the direction the fridge can actually move. If you push it from a weird 45-degree angle, you're wasting energy pushing it into the wall instead of down the hallway.
That's 4 entirely different physical laws. I mean, you have thermodynamics, optics, acoustics, and basic mechanics.
But here's the paper's biggest finding. When you normalize the data from all 4 of these systems and plot them on a unified overlay graph, they all show the exact same structural motif.
Really?
Yes. They found that the transition midpoints for all these systems cluster between 0.36 and 0.65 on the graph, and the steepness parameters of that cliff edge we talked about range from roughly 6 to 128.
So you're telling me the math behind light bending in a piece of glass is structurally the exact same as people clapping in sync in an auditorium?
Despite having totally different governing equations and even different transition directions, meaning some systems rise into coherence while others fall out of it, they all follow that same nonlinear logistic curve.
So what does this all mean? We have this universal curve for the instantaneous alignment, the snapshot of the IAC. How does the IOC, that sustained dripping bucket, map onto these specific physical systems?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the paper maps that out clearly. For the Kuramoto oscillators, sustained alignment means persistent collective oscillation. The pendulums just keep swinging together indefinitely.
Got it.
For optical transmission, maintaining that critical angle below 41.81 degrees means persistent energy transfer, resulting in stable light transmission over time. Which, by the way, is exactly how fiber optic cables give us high-speed internet.
That makes total sense. And for the signals and the heavy refrigerator?
Sustained phase locking yields clear, non-degraded signal integrity for your radio or your Wi-Fi. And for vector mechanics, sustained force alignment results in efficient cumulative work output. You actually move the fridge across the room instead of just sweating, slipping, and stuffing the floor.
Right.
This paired IAC and IOC framework offers a highly compact quantitative tool for modeling tipping points. It could be used in engineering, designing control systems, or analyzing complex networks. It provides a common language for understanding how order emerges from chaos across completely different fields.
But the paper does mention its own boundaries, which is important to point out.
No, absolutely, and that is just responsible science.
Yeah.
The authors explicitly note their limitations. They only analyze 4 theoretical systems in this preliminary study. The logistic fit they use for the graphs is an approximation, not a perfect, unbreakable law.
Sure.
And most importantly, they make no claims of absolute universality yet. It is a promising quantitative scaffolding, but future work needs to test it on more domains, add real-world noise to the equations, and really explore empirical validations.
Okay, so we have established that physics proves coherence absolutely requires the right relational variable to be aligned. You have to find that change point. But this brings us to a really uncomfortable question. What happens when we ignore the alignment entirely and just try to forcefully push our way through a problem?
This is where part 3 of the kids' presentation script comes in, and honestly, it hits surprisingly hard. It is titled, Why Some Things Never Work.
Yeah, it opens with this visual of a kid just trying over and over again, totally frustrated. The script asks, have you ever tried really hard and it still didn't work?
Yeah.
And I mean, we have all been there. You are exhausted, you are putting in maximum effort and getting absolute zero results.
And the script introduces a critical concept here to explain that frustration-wrong alignment.
The visual examples they use for the kids are perfectly simple. It shows an arrow pointing sideways, but someone is trying to push it straight forward, or someone trying to force a puzzle piece into the completely wrong spot.
Or trying to clap, but you are completely stubbornly off the rhythm of the room.
Right. And the core message of this section is profound in its simplicity. It says, don't just try harder, try aligning better. It points out that sometimes a tiny microscopic change in direction is infinitely more powerful than simply applying more brute effort.
Which is funny because we are culturally always taught, never give up, try harder, push through the pain.
Yes. But this deep dive is literally giving us a scientific excuse to stop trying so hard. It is like revving a car engine while your transmission is in neutral.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
You can push the gas pedal as hard as you want. You can burn up all the fuel in the tank. The engine can be screaming at the red line. But pushing the gas harder does not help if the gears aren't aligned. You are not going anywhere.
This raises an important question, right, regarding how we approach problem solving in our everyday lives. We often default to increasing our energy input when we face resistance. But reverting to the scientific reality outlined in the physics paper, what does the math actually say about a low IAC?
The paper states that low IAC yields near zero IOC regardless of duration.
Regardless of duration, misalignment actively disrupts structure. If your angle of incidence is wrong, if your phase difference is out of sync, the math proves that pouring more energy into the system simply cannot generate the sustained order, the IOC that you were looking for.
Right.
No amount of time or effort will create order if the initial alignment is fundamentally wrong.
The 6th grade script tells the kids, if something isn't working, it might not be you, it might be the alignment. That is such a relieving thought. It removes the personal failure from the equation and turns it into just a geometric problem, like what needs to rotate, what needs to shift.
It shifts your entire mindset from brute force to calibration. You stop asking, how can I push harder? And start asking, am I actually pointed in the right direction?
This has been quite the journey today. I mean, we started with the wobbling, frustrating experience of trying to ride a bike, and we went all the way through Kuromoto oscillators, transferring kinetic energy, optical transmission thresholds, and integral calculus.
We definitely covered a massive amount of ground to connect these sources.
But we arrived at this incredible realization that alignment leading to a change point isn't just a motivational phrase designed for an 11-year-old school assembly. It is a measurable physical phenomenon. It is governed by the math of the Informational Alignment Coefficient, the IAC, and the sustained accumulation of the Informational Order Coefficiency, the IOC.
Exactly. Whether you are a wave of light hitting a pane of glass or a student trying to understand a math problem, the underlying structural motif of coherence is exactly the same.
So here is the application for you. The next time you feel completely stuck on a project or a problem or even a conversation that just isn't working, don't just blindly pour more effort into it. Don't just sit there revving the engine in neutral. Stop, step back, and look for the misalignment first. Find what needs to be adjusted to hit that change point.
It is all about finding that precise efficiency before you apply the energy.
Which leaves us with a final thought to mull over. If the laws of physics dictate that systems only click into coherence when specific relational variables are perfectly aligned, what are the invisible relational variables in your own life?
That is a phenomenal question.
Think about your career trajectory, or maybe your daily routines. What are the variables you have been stubbornly trying to force, pushing and pushing with maximum effort, without ever stopping to check if their alignment is actually correct? Because maybe you don't need to try harder. Maybe you just need to adjust your angle, find that exact precise threshold, and finally feel the wobble vanish as everything just clicks.